Over the past 2 weeks, I've worked with both middle school age students and kindergartners. Now those skill levels, specifically in mathematics, range vastly, as you can see, or as you can already presume. However, they did have geometry aspects built in both of them, whether they were obvious or geometry centered or not. In the kindergarten classroom, they're focusing on specific shapes for that month, which is amazing to focus on one shape to build that foundation in order to get to the level as middle school. So they were, for this month, for example, it's a trapezoid, and they're continuously working with that, even when it's subtle, like putting that shape for the date. An introductory activity that they have is also working with those geoboards that we worked with in this class. And maybe they're not necessarily building certain shapes, or they are. They're still working on that spatial reasoning and those geometric type thinking, which is extremely important because that's a foundational skill that they're going to need later on. In the middle school levels, even 6th through 8th, the 8th graders were working with function notation, and the 6th graders were working with solving inequalities. However, both were working with the coordinate planes, and that coordinate plane and working with them and understanding that is a geometry aspect that they needed to know prior to this. That was part of their pre-knowledge. So I think geometry was integrated into that way, and it was necessarily in order to learn new topics such as those. For example, if they were going to need to learn the Pythagorean theorem, they're going to need to find that side and be able to graph it, or graph a function with the slope, working with those shapes. And then for the kindergartners, they're going to eventually have to work with transformations, just like transitions and things like that. So they're going to need to know those basic skills of what these shapes look like, what are the characteristics of them, so on and so forth. So I think that it's clear that it's only going to help them. This geometry integration is only going to help them in all levels of their mathematics. And I think that the ways that these teachers have incorporated it, even if it wasn't so obvious, rather subtle, it was still really effective. So that's something that I'm going to do, and at least now I know some different methods that they do and incorporate in their classroom that I can incorporate into mine. So, thank you.